Yep. So today our session dynamic interactions on LWC, and we can learn how we can invoke Apex classes dynamically on the fly. So today our speaker Deep Banerjee, and he's a Salesforce specialist and is an application architect and a consulting partner as well, and a global delivery. He manages all the global delivery within his organization, and he has a best out of the breed developer. What I can see, he's one of the great developer, and he has his own medium articles which he's written. So if anyone interested, probably can look at deepsmedium.com, so that you can see a lot of topics related to the development area, especially on the lightning web component and lightning components as well, right? So today our agenda, we can talk about our speaker's introduction, and Deep will talk about what is callable interface, dynamic interactions on LWC, and we can talk about how to invoke Apex class dynamically on the fly. And lastly, we can see a questions and answers. If there's any questions and answers, so we'll happy to help you throughout the session. Right, and I would like to update a quick update. So if anyone, I think you recently heard about, we've started the Salesforce Architect group, and me and Manish are leading that group, going soon. And this inaugural event is going to happen on this Thursday, coming Thursday, 28th July. So if anyone interested, you can join this group for getting a more updates, and you could join as a part of this great event. So we can come up with a lot of architectural decisions, especially on how you become a CTA. So we can conduct those kind of a series sessions with some great examples throughout the global CTAs. I'll paste these links, after the session, and let me hand over it to Deep, and then you can start with his introduction, and he'll start with the session as well. Over to you, Deep. Thank you.
Thank you for the good morning, everyone. Good afternoon from wherever you are. So, this is Deep. I've been working in Salesforce predominantly for the past 5 plus years, mostly into development and solutioning. So, today's topic, as you can see, I'll share my screen. Let me know once it's visible. I hope it's visible.
Yes, it is visible, Deep. You can go ahead.
Okay. So, dynamic interaction as a winter 22 release, if you know that Salesforce has brought out this new. Okay, so Salesforce has brought out this new type of communication, that is dynamic interaction. Okay, so what exactly is dynamic interaction? It enables different components that are on the same page to interact with each other. Okay. So earlier, this can only be enabled via the backend by using custom events, but now with the dynamic interaction, it is now configurable and even an admin can perform the same. So, as you can see, these are the different ways that we can communicate with different components. So component B, which is a child component, can communicate with component A, okay, either by custom events or by lightning message service. Okay. That is that they share the same ancestors. And if there are two sibling component, let's say component B and component C, so they can again um, communicate with lightning message service or the pub sub model that we commonly call as. Okay, this lightning message service can also be used to communicate between different technological stack like LWC and Aura, LWC and Visual Force Page components. So to communicate, we can use lightning message services. Now, this third type of uh, interaction, that is now we call as dynamic interaction, that is used to communicate between sibling components that lie on the same page and share the same technical stack, that is lightning web components. Okay, so you need to have both the components as type of LWC components for them to dynamically interact with each other. Okay, so what are the limitations as of now? So current limitations, if you see, that dynamic interactions are only available on app pages, that is the number one. And dynamic interactions kind of exposes events to the app builder, but no standard web component or no standard component is yet exposing its event to the app builder. Okay, so but they, I'll come to that part once I start my demo, so this point will be much more clear. Okay, so let me show you what, I hope my screen is visible. So
Yes,
so
it's
let's
visible.
let's say that this is a component A and this is a component B. I want to see the record, okay, of account. Okay, so whenever I see, so this particular component is interacting on the change of this, on select of this event, and it is going to display a record form based on this. Okay, this not only applies to particular, this is like a dynamic component. So let's say I select maybe an opportunity record. Okay, and again I select any random opportunity to view its record. So now it will show me the opportunity. uh, it's a very simple way of interacting. So it how it's interacting is, for that I'll show you the page itself. Yeah, so if I go to this particular, you can see there's a new tab added called as interactions. Okay, so what this tab right now, if you see, it has a, I have created an interaction. Okay, and this is interacting, and based on this event this particular form is displaying. How that is happening, for that let's jump to the code, and again I come to this part on how we can create an interaction. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, so this is the VS code. This is the record form. This you can see is a standard record form, lightning record form. It has two dynamic parameter. One is the object API name, other is the record ID. Okay, and this is being passed now. The actual thing is in the target properties. So if you come to the XML of it, okay, this is the record from JS meta XML file. You see the target is lightning app page. Currently that's a limitation, that it will only work in an app page. Okay, so it has two properties, that is, one is the object API name type string, and another is the record ID type string. Okay, so these are the two properties that this particular component holds. And next comes this selector, lightning record selector. So what it does, it basically querying all the objects and the record IDs, and on select of it, it is firing, populating the event. Okay, so if you can see it on handle event, there's a event handler. So on change of it, it is populating the record ID, similarly the object API name, and rest syntax is same as that of a custom event, that you dispatch, how you dispatch a custom event. Whenever a record is selected, the detail you are passing the object API name and the record ID. The real changes in the meta XML. So here you can see that we have a schema tag. This is a new introduction by Salesforce. We have a schema tag in the JSON and a JSON object. Okay, now this JSON object is what will define the properties in your target component. So you need to define those properties. So this has two properties, one is the record ID property, another is the object API name property. This property name should be same for the target one. So you can see I have named it same as case sensitive. So the properties again has a type string. Okay, both of them are of type string. So this schema, this JSON is actually what defining the properties that the target component will interact with. Next is the event. If you can see here, this is the event I have named is a record selected. So this event will fire whenever a record is selected. Okay, so the record selected, as we saw over here, this record selected. So whenever this record is selected, this particular event will fire in the app builder. Okay, so this is how the custom dynamic interactions work. So now coming back to that dynamic interaction that I was showing you, what I meant was, like, if I select a particular record selected, this is showing, but how it's showing. Yeah, now I'll just delete this. I'll add one interaction, you can have more than one. Yeah. By default, it will be only update properties. As of today it's available, maybe in future other will also come. So which component do we want it to be? Okay, so you need to write the component name over here you want to interact with. So we want the record form to interact with. It will show the properties that are available of the record form. Okay, so the record from properties, the properties of the record form are now available. How we can, the syntax is very common. So we need to copy the exact API name, I mean exact property name that we have mentioned. I believe that is the property name, object API name. Yeah, so that's how you configure a interaction. So this is again a very configurable thing that even an admin can do. Once the properties are defined as a JSON property in the XML file, the admin can come and define any types of interaction he wants to see. Maybe he wants to see the location map of a for every account whenever he selects a location. So the use cases are endless. And this is a very rich way of interacting uh, for a non-code uh, person, like who is not very much into coding, more like admin guy or maybe a business analyst kind of person. Okay, so this was the first use case that we are covering in this session, the dynamic interactions. If anyone has any question, they can go, else I'll switch to the next topic.
I think seems like no questions. Deep. You can go to the next topic. I think participant, please feel free to put it in messages so that we can happy to clarify those questions.
So the next topic that we are covering is a callable interface. Okay, so this is the official documentation of Salesforce of a callable interface. As the name suggests, this interface, like we have a batchable interface or a queuable interface, we can implement a callable interface. This is a synchronous. If you are implementing an Apex class as callable, you need to remember it is still going to be synchronous itself. Okay, so this doesn't define make anything as asynchronous. It just makes it to be invoked from other classes, other apex classes. So what I meant by callable exactly, let's start with a demo. Okay, so I have this simple, very simple class. What it does is it calculates it, that you can see there are two methods: the calculate volume of cube and convert to uppercase. Okay, so two methods are there. Okay, and this is how the callable interface method is written. So it returns an object, it takes an action and an arguments in the form of map of string object. Okay, so the string basically is the key or the method that I have made as key. So when it is uppercase, just return whatever arguments this object has. Similarly, when the key is another, the key is basically another method of it, return the arguments that this particular map has. Okay, how we can call this is, let's say now I want to call this particular class. Okay, but I don't want to hard code the name of the class for right now demo purpose, like I've hard coded it. But let's say you want to derive it from a custom metadata. Okay, the class name and method name, you can derive this class name and methods name from custom metadata, and you can just pass those class name and method name as parameters to this map. So if you can see here, I'll just, I hope my screen is clear. So this particular, I am sending a parameter of side 5. Okay, so this side is the parameter, and it has, I'm sending it as 5, if you can see. So this particular decimal takes a one parameter as input. Okay, so how can we invoke this class from this class is basically, I'll just execute it. Okay, now since I'm passing a parameter of 5, obviously the output it should render is, it will come here and check what is the parameter that is coming. So it first check it is a calculate volume, which method is being invoked. So calculate volume of cube is invoked, and it is going to typecast it to a relevant argument. Okay, in this case it's integer, and then we'll have the result with us. So you can see we have the result. Point of using a callable interface is when you are trying to enable a trigger pattern, maybe a singleton pattern or strategy pattern, whatever trigger pattern that you are trying to implement, and you don't want to hard code any particular classes. Okay, let's say you're storing them in custom metadata, and you want it to be configurable. So what you can do is you just need to extract the value from the custom metadata and pass it. Rest it will, it's as you can see there's a switch on the action, that is on the action parameter, what all method it has or which method is being invoked. Okay, here based on the method name, it will invoke the class. Only thing that it class needs to be callable, and it needs to have this kind of a format. Okay, it must return an object, or you can even return a wrapper, but I believe that returning an object is a simple use case. If you have a very lengthy use cases, you can also return wrappers. If anyone again has a question here, can is this, I'll take that as a no if no one has any questions.
I think there's a question. The question is from Subhajit Burkat. Can we use navigation mix in it?
Where can we use navigation mixing in it? I Hi, if you're talking with respect to the LWC component, yeah, you can use navigation mixing in it, but dynamic interaction and navigation are totally different things. Okay, it's uh, like you want to, if you are talking about like navigating to some other page and then trying to interact with it, no, then that is not possible. But yeah, using navigation mixing for any particular web component, you can definitely use it. Okay, there's no limitation to it.
Okay, there's one more question, Deep, from Amrudesh. Is asking, could you please explain the use case of callable interface once again?
Yeah, so why would use a callable interface is like, you want to invoke classes dynamically. Okay, you that are stored somewhere, maybe in custom metadata. Okay, let's say you are uh, trying to implement a trigger pattern. Let Okay, and this trigger pattern, you are having the class name of various different trigger. Let's say you're trying to consolidate on a particular object opportunity. Okay, so on, let's say, this opportunity trigger, uh, you can also invoke different other trigger as well, maybe on trigger on the opportunity line item, or XYZ object that are related to the use cases of opportunity, right? So you don't want them to be hard coded in your class. Rather, what you want is you want to make them configurable so that tomorrow you can just change, go to the custom metadata and just change the name of the method or the class. Let's say you update the class to something else, or the particular class got discarded. You don't have to go and make changes to the trigger itself now, because a trigger is the point where you always do a class name dot method name, right? So if the class is not in use, you can just go and delete that custom metadata record. Okay, so the reason of using a callable interface is to make the system more robust and more configurable, as well as to reduce the maintenance. Okay, so tomorrow, let's say you try to update the particular classes or merge two classes, you can just go and update it anytime. You don't have to work on the class itself. Sometimes when we are trying to make changes to legacy code bases, we face a lot of issues, right? This is one case. Another would be like, let's say you are doing an integration between Salesforce and an uh, some other XYZ system. It's maybe it's outbound integration. Okay, so in that case you have let's say huge response time, and based on the response time, so you decide to make it an asynchronous apex to call the outbound system. Now when the response return, you want to use this response to invoke some other apex class to parse that response. Okay, so what you can do is you can again use this callable interface to invoke the class that is going to parse the response. Okay, from once you have the response with you, since it's a synchronous process, you don't know when the response will come. But what you can do is you can write a code, maybe when the response code is 200, call this particular class. So you can do a sequencing, a chaining of different classes based on your requirement. So those would be a very like a high level requirements. I would say the implications are endless. Yeah. Is this clear, or do you want me to?
No, I think it's thank you. Yes, clear. Thanks, If. That was really wonderful. Participants, any other questions? If not, is there anything that you would like to cover, Deep?
uh no, no, funny, I don't have anything
Okay.
else.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Deep, for a wonderful time, and it's really a good session, that informative session for the developer perspective, and we would really go and then try it out all these things. And thank you so much for your time. And we'll keep continue working with you for multiple sessions on the. Now we are moving into architecture. Then probably I'll reach out to you for talking about some API event-driven architecture and other couple of elements.
Sure. Thanks.
Thanks again, joining everyone. Thanks again. Thank you so much. I'll stop recording.